after a couple postings of my low budget pool / pond videos and the fish that I keep in them, I get a lot of questions concerning the setup, how I do things, the equipment I use, and so on. It's pretty simple and pretty easy to set up. So I'll give you a quick rundown of what's going on here. Several years ago, a buddy of mine had an above ground pool, and he was moving, and he asked me if I would like to have it. And I live in the country, so I had a little bit of room, and I said, yeah, I'll take it, of course. And right away I began thinking it would be something to be able to keep some fish in there, but that was yet to come. Anyways, I brought the pool home. A couple weeks later I started the setup of it, and the kids were all excited with the great big pool in the backyard, but then I got great pleasure out of disappointing them by telling them it was for fish. But they're welcome to swim with the fish anyhow. The pool is kind of a very economical Intex pool. They're found everywhere. Any large department store has it. This one I think is 16 feet round, 4 feet high. It came with a small pool filter and pump, an all-in-one unit, and it was very it was underrated for what I needed for the water movement to keep fish. So anyways, I went ahead and purchased a sand filter online, and it had a pump hooked to it, and it worked well for a number of years. And the pump eventually burnt out. So this year I went and I got a 1/2 horsepower pump, another economical thing, got it off eBay. I'm not sure it's meant to be run constantly, so I kind of stagger it one day and the next with another one that is hooked over here. And I'll show you what both of them do. Over the 7 or 8 years that I've had this thing set up, I've learned a couple tricks and do things a little differently than I first did. First off, the sand filter made a big difference in water clarity and suspended particles in the water. Highly recommend that. All we have here is the output of the pool goes directly into the pump. Pump pumps it up into the sand filter, flows through the sand filter. There are a number of settings on top in which you can filter wastewater, do a rinse of it, a cleansing, and the output of the sand filter runs right back under pressure into the pool. And I try to keep the water level below the output so that the water coming out of the outflow squirts across the surface, creating a little more oxygenation turnover in the water. It gets pretty hot here in the summer, so anything you can do to keep water moving, the better. Anyways, that's pretty simple. That's all there is to that. Now this is the second pump. It's identical to the first. It's really, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not necessary to run a second one, but there's so many advantages to having one. First of all, you have a backup pump if something ever happens to your primary pump, and with a little PVC engineering, you can do some cool things with it. So here's what we have. This is the main intake. It's basically a 1-inch PVC with some holes drilled in the bottom and a cap, and it runs through here. I've got it valved to shut it off or turn it on or decrease the water movement. Sucks up through here, comes down through here into the pump, outflows up here and back in. This is just a straight, there's no filter on it. This is just a straight water flow. Now what I have done is I have two intakes coming into the pump. This one's turned off presently, but what it is, it's another inch wide PVC pipe that goes down into the water, but I can hook a hose onto it and siphon the bottom of the pool, the mulm that collects on the bottom. The mulm doesn't hurt the fish at all, but I like to get in and take some photographs of the fish and everything, and suspended particles in the water don't make for great photography. So anyways, you can use this to, like I said, there's a hose that goes on the end of it, and I can go all the way around the pool, siphoning out the mulm from the bottom. And on the output, you have the straight output. Now it's configured to go straight back into the pool. However, if I wanted to, I could turn this valve on and turn this one off, and the water will come out the bottom. And I have a garden hose fitting on here. So what I can actually do if I want to do a water change, or if I'm vacuuming up some mulm, I can use that water coming out of the pool to water some of the plants in the yard, which it works out really well, especially in the summer. You know, you help with water costs. It's water you're losing anyway, and it's all rich in waste, which is fantastic for the plants. Now, another piece of equipment I have, which is an absolute necessity here, is a UV sterilizer. It's just a cheap 26 watt UV sterilizer. It runs constantly. I have it hooked to a small power head. You can see down here. It comes in through the pipe, in through the top of the UV, drains down into the bottom, and runs out over here. Now, it's not a big water flow. You don't want a high water flow with a UV sterilizer. You want the light to hit as much of the water as you can. The good thing about this is when I set it up in the spring, it was a couple weeks before I had the UV going, and the water had turned green quite quickly, which is common. But within a week of having the UV running and that small little power head, within a week the water was crystal clear. So I would consider this, especially in our region, a necessity, this necessary piece of equipment. Early on when I started out, I didn't have the UV sterilizer. I tried to put a number of aquatic plants in the water, hoping that they would take the nutrients that would feed the the one cell algae that makes up the green water. Anyways, that really didn't work. Nothing takes the place of the UV. So anyways, there's your three main pieces of equipment. I've got the UV sterilizer, 2 half horsepower pumps, one hooked to a tangle of PVC valved up to water my yard if I need to and vacuum the bottom of the pool, and the other hooked to a sand filter. Now, one thing I did do different this year is I went ahead and built a little platform, a little deck up onto the pool. I really enjoy watching the fish, so I can actually go up here now and sit down and have my morning tea and play with the fish. And it's got an opening here where a ladder goes down into the pool, so if I wanted to do a little diving with the fish or a little swimming, I can climb right down here into the water and out of the water the same way. So this was definitely not a necessity, but I'm glad I did it, and it turned out really well. Now we'll get into a little rundown of the species I've chosen for the pond this year. I guess before I do, I can show you, I'll get some underwater footage here in a second and give you a better view of it. But in the middle, here's the circumference of the pool. In the middle, I've got a sort of a reef, a mound built up of native rock, holy rock, as we call it. And the fish really enjoy that. If anything, I think I'll expand it, maybe over and towards the center a little bit. You can see at the side of the pool, I have this big piece of cypress that a buddy of mine brought me from Louisiana. He guaranteed it would sink. It's been 7 years, it's still floating. It'll probably sink about the same time I do. But in the meantime, here's what we have in the pool. There is a nice colony of Protomylus steveni, the tangerine tiger. That's the biggest fish in there. You can see the big male. We'll try to get some underwater footage of him. He's stunning. Before I tell you the rest of the cichlids, I should tell you that there's if you can see them, there's a lot of Poecilia formosa, the Amazon mollies. They're a native fish, and I went and caught a good number of them when I had first set the pond up this year to ensure that the water was the quality that was good enough for the cichlids. Mollies did just fine. They're a big fish. Nothing really bothers them too much, and they've been a really great addition, albeit not geographically perfect with the inhabitants of the pool, but they're working along just fine. Anyways, I said that we have the Protomylus. I have a pair of Paralibidochroma species fire from Uganda. Just one pair, an adult pair I had left over. I figured they'd go fine in there. The piebald fish are Neochromis omniceruleus, from a variant from Macobe Island in Lake Victoria. I also have Labidochromis ceruleus from Malawi, a really nice yellow fish, and in there with some Pseudotropheus demasoni. The bright blue is striking underwater. Excuse me. Recently, I added Alana Cara. It's a Jacob Freeburgi variant. I think it's Otter Point. I can't remember, but it might be Otter Point, along with Paralibidochromis chalotes from Zoo Island in Lake Victoria. And the two species that I added most recently, and will probably be it for this year, is Fuscochromis rostratus and Capatochromis borlei, I believe. Anyways, and they're still young, but the borlei are just coming into color, looking really good. So there you have it. That's the view from above. I'll sign off, and we'll do a quick little view of what things look like underwater.